Hello, everyone. I assume we are not waiting for anyone any longer. Welcome to the first episode of our series, Politics and the City, which is co hosted by my beautiful friend Julia Kril, who is the executive director and the co founder of B&K Agency specialized in public affairs. And the joint project of Ads in the City, which is my project on strategic communications and is co-hosted by me, Tetiana Rak. I'm also the Chief Operations Officer of Peer Innovation. And today we are also co-joined for the first episode by Irune Ariño, uh, who will tell us about herself a little bit more. So, Irene, would you like to introduce yourself and we can deep further into Madrid, where you are speaking with us from?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much to both of you for this invitation. Um, well, um, as you said, we're here to speak not only about Spain but about other things related to politics. But you mentioned Spain because I'm Spanish. I've been dedicated to political analysis, mainly in international affairs, for the past 3 years. I studied political science, and last month I also created my own podcast, Puente Atlántico, which is Atlantic Bridge in English. Um, and yeah, I think more or less I've done like many things related to politics, but this is what I'm doing right now. So yeah, I'm open to every topic that you want to cover.
Thank you so much for joining us. Julia, you wanted to say something, so go ahead.
No, no, welcome, Iruna. It's such a pleasure to see you after so long.
It's true. It's true. It's true.
Io studiavo español per il resto tempo, so I've been practicing for our meeting.
You did it well. You did it well.
So, ladies, how I would like to build this conversation today. I think that this podcast can be useful for those who are generally interested in political communication, because let's agree this is a more niche topic than communications, marketing, PR in general, and also for people who are working in our field, for those who is interested to find questions, daily struggles with that. So today I would suggest to discuss what we are facing on the daily basis, and basically exchange our experiences. So the first question would be, Iruna, how generally you came to the niche so that people can understand your background, and then we can discuss how all of us basically transitioned into that.
Well, I'll try to make it short. So, I mean, all of us, we more or less come from the same background, sort of, no, from youth organizations, grassroots organization, a political organization, of course, no, a pro-liberty organization, SFL, Students for Liberty. So, as I guess both of you, I've always been interested in politics, in current affairs. This is what brought me to be part of SFL. And when I was still there, when I was not anymore volunteering, but when I was working there, I finished my studies, as I said, political science, and I was telling to myself what I'm going to do now. I want to work in politics, but I don't want to work in politics in, let's say, in a formal way, being part of a party, being part of um, even at that moment, I was not considering being an advisor or something like that. And at that point, since I was part of the uh, think tank world, which is quite not usual here in Spain, and besides Brussels is not really common in Europe neither. Um, I started with the nonprofit sector with a think tank. After that, I went to an advisory role, that one that I was not considering at first. Then at some point I was like, well, I've experienced what looks like to work for a think tank. Now I want to really like be on the other side, no, that side that we wanted to, or that we were trying to approach when I was part of the think tank. Now let's see how really things get done. And after that, I also said to myself, okay, I had the picture of what this looked like, and I think I want to come back to private. And that's when I started a consultancy firm, a small one. Now we have merged with an old friend, and I think you all know him. It's Juan Angel Soto. He was back then when I met him for the first time, director of Civismo, which is another think tank in here in Spain. And yeah, this is how I approached this sort of advisory or communicative or analyst role in politics. And on what I've been done all these years, I've been doing like many different things. But mainly, I could summarize them in reading and writing, because it's really what advisory roles in the end are about. Of course, I've done a lot of things in the audiovisual sector, but I'm not the person behind the camera. No, I'm the person behind the paper regularly. So yeah.
But why were you not considering the advisory role? It's so interesting. You know, a lot of people, if they would have received such an offer, they would have jumped on it so fast.
Yeah, it's funny. It was my first offer when I finished my political science degree. But at that moment, I was like, I mean, there's like the honest story. First, I will start with the, let's say, more analytical story. And then I will go to the more personal and real story. The analytical story was that, okay, I finished the degree and I'm not sure if I'm aligned with the values of the people that I was asked to advise.
Mm.
So, it's complicated because you need like to, when you sort of are in politics, you, at least at the beginning, you really want to push and to advance your ideas, no? And when the ideas of the ones that you're helping are not aligned with yours, it's complicated for you. And I also was like, maybe I don't have anything to also to advise. I'm too young, I'm too unexperienced. So, but as I said, like the real story was that I was in love and I had another offer in Madrid. That offer was in Brussels, and I was like, I'm not sure I want to be in Brussels and have my partner in Madrid. So I decided to go to Madrid. This is like
Ah,
the real.
so your offer was not what we know of your work as an advisor. It was a different one.
It was a different one, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Would you move to Brussels ever?
yeah. I don't think so. I don't think so. I really like Madrid. For me, it's really important the place where I live.
Mm.
You know,
Yes,
It's
I feel that. I understand that.
it's
you still live in Milan,
Yes, but you know, lately my heart has been growing a lot more for Brussels. So
really?
yeah,
I mean,
because
it's not
because my heart became colder and more rational.
okay. Okay, okay,
Yes.
okay. I mean, Brussels. I like Brussels. I've been once when I met you. Not you. I met we met Tetiana in Brussels a couple of weeks ago, if I'm not wrong. Was yeah, a couple of weeks ago. It was my first time in Brussels, and I really like the city. but I don't think I see myself living there. It's too cold.
For
Yeah.
me, it's so much opposite. Like I rate Brussels in terms of professional arrangements. I think that Brussels, if we're speaking about Europe, it offers you so many things to do, so many networking opportunities, everything, all in all. But when it comes to living, I do not really like the city, and also I do not find Brussels safe to live in, or at least it's my experience with Brussels.
Yes, but I mean, maybe I'm more advocating for myself or maybe for some more people here, but at the end of the day, it's just trade-offs, right? It depends on what are your goals, what are your ambitions, what is that you want to achieve, and then what you prioritize in life more, right? If you prioritize more, the relationship or your comfort, or because these are very important things, then the choice is obvious. Then you go where your family is, you go where you maybe you have history or where you're coming from. But then people move to Brussels because they have the ambition mm, to build a career right in that environment. And as much as we've been trying to go back and forth and do our work out of the office in Milan and still be present there, the more and more I'm realizing that the service we provide is there, so we have to be there. And but it's trade-offs, right? Then like you sacrifice the comfort of your life, you sacrifice many relationships, you sacrifice many of your personal story in a way. So but either, like, there is no right or wrong for every person. Whatever they choose is right.
Because both of you, for in terms of work, you're traveling a lot to Brussels.
Yeah, yeah.
Brussels and generally overall, I think that both of us are
Okay.
on the road all the time, to be honest. But however, like I understand the importance of liking the place where you are at because it is also about the comfort and about the ability to build something outside the work. However, coming back to some things that you said before, so you said that you are feeling more comfortable when you are, so to speak, behind the scenes. But I think that there is so much soft power hidden there because you're working on the strategy. And I think that this is such a tough work that lots of people underestimate and they think that it is so easy. You just look at someone and you elaborate the campaign for them, and then there is a certain number of action items, and then boom, you have your champagne moment. But it's a tough thing. So how would you say what is your biggest impact? How to stay influential while the spotlight of the camera is not aimed at your face?
It's a really good question. And what I would say is you can influence those who want to be influenced. And I'm going to explain myself. Um, of course, there's this romantic thing, behind the idea of political consultant, advisors, and stuff like that. No, that you're like really moving the ropes. Sorry, because this is a Spanish expression, so I don't know if that makes sense in English. No, but you're like, like really, really deciding when you're behind the cameras. But this is not 100% true. And the condition if is yes, you can influence, but only if that person wants to be influenced. So you can be, I don't know, a speech writer, and you can do a lot just by writing a speech, because you can emphasize certain things that you think are more important than others. But if in the end what you're writing, there's somebody else or the person itself that needs to write it, to read it out loud, not the politician, um, is changing the message, then you're not really influencing. If I don't know, you're doing a note on the position that you think a political party or a politician needs to have on a certain topic or in a certain meeting that you're helping to prepare, but in the end, the person that really needs, to defend a position, decides to do or to defend another one, then you're not influencing. So that's why I'm saying that it really depends on not, of course it depends on your own ability first to connect with the people that you're helping. When you personally connect, at least in let's say Latin environment, it's really important. Maybe in other environments, and I would like to know more about that. I mean, if you can also explain and talk about your experiences, but at least in I would say in the Latin world, personal connections are super important. So if you have a good personal connection with the person, or with the, even if you're not advising a political party, or you advising a company or a CEO or whatever, you need to have a personal connection. And also you need to have the ability, I would say, first, to not be too obvious if what you want to push is something that you have not convinced enough the person that you need to convince. So you need to be mm, don't go hard on that, so maybe um you send this specific message right now, and you wait until you send the second specific message, no, so the person is you give the person time uh to yeah, to think about that, no, and to get convinced. And the second thing I would say is to choose your battles, no. Let's say, imagine, I'm gonna put an hypothetical example. um Imagine that you're super pro-liberty, and you're advising a general center right wing government, which, yeah, wants to cut taxes, but not that much, or not at least on same level that you want, no. And also, I don't know, you really want to cut red tape, no, and this is, you think this is a really important thing to do. It's really difficult that you will manage to that person, that politician, to make both at the same time. So first, choose the battle, not to choose the easiest battle, maybe, or the most feasible at that moment battle. So either taxes or cutting red tape, and then start with something that a bit smaller than what you really want to achieve, and try, to increase, try to basically move the overtone window. So
Mhm.
I would, but I would like to know about your experience more, because maybe here we can find like the cultural differences that are also important for this type of things.
I wanted to just jump in with another question,
Okay.
because you, of course, you have to involve the public, right, in your work. You need to know that the public sentiment is in favor of the politician you're working with, of his ideas and the agenda that you're advising on. How do you measure that public sentiment? Do you just rely on media, on polls? How do you understand, again, which battle to choose, for example?
Again, really good question, and really difficult, because I guess there's no one formula for that.
Mhm.
um this is not a single one that works for every case. So what I've been doing, I always try to be as much connected as I can. It's not always easy. And how I do that, um well, I have like this huge email which I am subscribed to everything, mostly, no, newsletters, blogs, and a lot of stuff, and I follow a lot of people on social media, and I try at least to dedicate. I don't always manage to do that, but I try to dedicate a couple of hours a day checking all of this, because this gives me more or less an idea. The second thing I really do is I try to do that, but also outside my own bubble, because sometimes if you just follow, even though you're advising a certain political aligned group or person, is you still need to be outside that bubble, because the public is everybody, not just your bubble. Of course, it's important that the ones that apparently are aligned with you, um, you also have the thermometer on what they want and what they think, no? But you also need to have the bigger picture. And besides that, yeah, we try to follow a lot of private and, let's say, open source surveys. With the surveys our own, this is not what I do the most, surveys of our own, but we have started in this last year. And like, I mean, this is like the best thing to do. Of course, it's financially intensive, let's say. But if you rely on different sources, you don't need like to do the work yourself, not to do surveys for ourselves, but of course it's also, um, I mean, you need to also invest a lot of time in doing that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Or
That's
money or time, and money it's also time, so, and time is also money, so you can so
That's a good statement. And actually, I really resonate with what you are saying about talking to people who are not only on your side. What I think is very important in communications generally, but especially we're talking about political communications. And this is something that many politicians forget to do, even during the election campaigns or public campaigns, is that you also need to hear the voices of those who are not on your side, in fact, the opponents. Because you do not want your message to hit only the groups who already resonate. They are already on your side. However, you need to have enough of persuasion and enough of arguments to explain why you are standing on the side and some particular position that you are advocating for, that you are defending for, and to be grounded in that, so that at least if people are not fully persuaded and they are keeping up to their point, they understand that you are not coming as someone who is chaotic, but your message is aligned, and they understand why you are standing on that. And at least if they do not agree, they respect, because you can understand your whys, and also you have your house.
Yeah.
And coming back to the aspect of the cultural differences, for me, for example, I'm working with quite globalized community, so I think that generally understanding some local cultures, cultural codes, ethics is very important, because you do not want to come off as someone who is offensive, someone who disrespects. There is also the difference in terms of communication. I remember when I was organizing the event in Sweden, for example, it was considered to be quite rude if you are calling someone after 4 p.m., 5 p.m. And for me, back then, I was in the US, so we had quite a big time difference, and you are calling and it's already 3 p.m. People are already wrapping everything up, and it's kind of problematic. But such things you probably learn with experience. And other than that, I'm always standing for asking a person how it would be the most convenient to reach them out, how it would be the most convenient to communicate. And also, a tip that I'm always using is that I'm always trying to find someone who is on the ground, whether we are talking about some other NGO who you are working with, or whether this is a client, or whether this is a person who is also doing communications. Because as a local, they understand what are go-tos and what are no-goes for a certain environment. And um, in fact, that will save you so much time, so much resources, and you won't have to go through all this research.
Yeah. For us, from our end, just as a response to the strategies that Irune is adopting as an advisor to policymakers, we are actually on the other side. We are trying to influence advisors in the first place so that they would influence their policymakers, because our target audience is to work obviously with the institutional stakeholders. So and also it depends on the issue, really, what you're working on, right? A lot of times public is already super divided, or public doesn't care that much, or it's just very pretty much naturally divided, and kind of like, if we talk about more social issues, I don't know, women entrepreneurship, right? You would obviously get more support from women who run their businesses, maybe also from men who run their businesses, who understand the value of growing the business environment generally and advocating for all business owners. But if we're talking global conflicts, if we are talking about, I know, for example, tobacco harm reduction, it's all of these things already have pretty much predetermined areas that you expect the public to react one way or the other, and I'm pretty sure that they're somewhere in the middle, in the 50% division. So that is why we try to focus on those, small wins with policymakers and trying to run our campaigns through that end.
Yeah, definitely. Then coming from here, I have a question. So there are always some issues that people are more sensitive to, politicians including. So usually these are either burning issues, or this is something that is relevant to a particular target group. However, how do you think would be the best thing to approach complicated issues these days? And let me clarify here so that we can go from there. I think that the format of channels where we engage with different stakeholders, they are changing, they are evolving, especially with the rise of social media. Campaigns are also being done online. And in fact, if you want to launch some kind of message, if you tweet it, sometimes it will get so much more reach than if you go and do the interview or the traditional media publication. So how do you see the impact on your work here? What are the tools that you're using? What channels do you find the most useful in that regard? And also, Irona, you are having a podcast. How do you see a podcast as a communications tool here?
Right now, it's becoming for sure really mainstream to use podcast as a communication tool for in politics. Um, for sure, the audience that podcasts have nowadays are wider than the ones that um, traditional media has, no, mainly TV and radio. And here in Spain, we have a lot of examples. Uh, Vice President, former Vice President Pablo Iglesias, when when um, when he decided like to not being in formal politics anymore, he decided to start a TV on YouTube on his own, no, of course, with other people, and for sure with funding from, I haven't investigated that, but what I want to say is that politicians are realizing that this is a really good way to communicate, mainly because it's cheaper. You can generate a more sort of direct contact with your audience. It's easier to do it. You don't really need to have your a studio or to rent a studio. You can do it even at home if you have more or less the, the 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 necessary equipment. And it's really easy. I mean, not really easy, but it's quite easy to get viral on social media. And since we're like really stick to our phones all the day, uh, you know, scrolling down, it's really easy for you to find this type of content in for, in social media. For example, of course, it's not representative, but even myself, I don't have a TV. I haven't had TV for like, I don't know, maybe 10 years. Uh, so I'm not really consuming news through the TV or political content from TV. I'm a YouTube user, 100%. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and this is one of the ways that I keep myself stick to the current affairs and to and I use them as a, as I was saying, as a thermometer. And even podcast sometimes allows yourself to be quicker in order to send a message, because as I said, since it's easier and cheaper, and you can really do it from your phone if you have a good phone. You can deliver a message like right away when you want to do it, directly to your audience. So I think we're like, as I said, we're this is now mainstream, but it's or has been a revolution for how political stuff is being communicated in the last years.
Yeah, I will give another example. I think because podcast, I absolutely agree. YouTube is beating the other social media so much more. But TikTok, this is our pain. Just yesterday, a client came to us because there was a 7-minute video on TikTok with 20,000 views speaking on the issue that we are speaking on the issue, and they wanted to issue a response to that. So a TikTok video that of somebody's speech, AI translated, is a point of concern for an organization, and they wanted to issue a response or just debunk it through writing an article on the media. So TikTok is becoming on the same level as even we can say traditional or digital media outlets. Now, I'm pretty sure that half of the White House briefing room is mainstream media. It's TikTokers, influencers. Now it's lifestyle media are present there. And Trump is slowly pushing back legacy media because credibility no longer matters. It's the size and volume and the amount of people that these media outlets can impact. So I think we really have to learn how to navigate and follow the messaging that also are coming through these things, and learn how to do even crisis management through that.
No, I totally agree with you. And in countries like Guatemala, which is a country that I'm quite familiar with, TikTok is really important as a tool for political campaign for many years so far. Um, like candidates are exposing their day-to-day life and campaigning using TikTok. It's true that, for example, in Spain, it's not a political tool yet. Here in Spain, we're really our two main political social networks are Twitter and Telegram. One of the last parties that got representation on the European elections, called Se acabó la fiesta, the party's over. Um, they started, of course, the guy who is leading this party is well known. I wouldn't say influencer. I don't know how to label it, how to label him, but of course he was well known, but he organized his campaign through Telegram. But we've seen how important is TikTok in elections in other countries like Romania, and we've seen all of us what happened, no, with the former candidate Colin Georgescu,
Yeah.
and all what happened after that campaign and stuff like that. So 100% I mean, I totally agree with the importance of TikTok and the increasing need to learn how we can communicate through this social network.
Actually, you know what? I'm also noticing, I think that young politicians are going to redefine also the status quo for those who are in the office long term. They're they're now again talking to their electorate through social media. They're following trends. They are actually following trends. They have studios in their offices, and they see more of those, more established MEPs having now podcast studios in their offices too. Everybody is moving towards all of the new media, and I think it's only going to be rising, but it's also going to be redefining. And younger politicians will be redefining the communications tools. But I think Europe wasn't fully ready for that. That's also partially why a Romanian election was cancelled, because Europe also has a lot of disinformation campaigns coming in, so that's also a factor. You have to understand AI, propaganda. All of these are also going to be impacting, because many people don't really know how to distinguish between objective truths and AI generated content, and it's going to be quite challenging at the same time. So you have to be ready on both fronts. You have to know how to use the tools and and you have to overcome your fears or I don't know, your shyness to be doing it. And at the same time, you have to be wary that your message might not get as much traction as AI generated message or just some popular, not that sophisticated piece of content would beat yours.
I think that the thing with TikTok and changes that we are seeing among young politicians is that, first of all, uh, the age and the generations of the electorate and target audience is changing. And the way how you can interact with Gen X will not be the same as if you are interacting with millennials or with Gen Z, who are also the first voters. Another thing is that there is a very short attention span that we can see today. We have so many information messages falling on us from all places. And I think that generally the pace of life became much faster for people, and that's why they are consuming the information that is just given them, so to speak, on the plate. They are not analyzing, they do not have the time to scroll through all media outlets. And it is very convenient that while you're on the way to your office or you're coming back from work, you open TikTok, you scroll. And also, um, I think that the video that you mentioned, 7 minutes video on TikTok, for TikTok and for the format of this platform, it is also quite long. Most of the TikToks and from the different trainings that I was attending, the recommendations were not to make the video longer than 1 minute 30 seconds. However, what I also see is that indeed there is a rising tendency for politicians, for the parties, for NGOs also to adjust to the trends. Even today, Yulia, we were discussing briefly with you on social media that you sent me a video from some NGO that was adjusting to TikTok trends. And what I also find fascinating and something that I was speaking to my colleagues for some time already is that I see that very serious institutions stop being that serious in the delivery of their messages. Because before that, if you are working with broader audiences, especially older audience, you cannot allow yourself to come off as goofy, because then who will take your work seriously? Now, what I quite often see, and I see that even from some of my colleagues, for instance, some Swedish politicians, but like of the younger age, they are not afraid to publish something on social media that exposes their work, how they are getting ready in the morning, how they are coming back, how they are spending their weekends. And from one hand, you can see like a very typical content, Gen Z, right? why would you take it seriously? However, it creates a psychological effect of the audience feeling closer to them, and this is also something which is very interesting. And one more thing that I would add up on that, because you, Yulia, mentioned that campaigns and politicians engaging with influencers and boosting their volume and frequency of their presence on social media. I saw that during the elections in the US and how much content was produced during Trump's campaign, especially interacting with influencers who most of the like first-time voters are watching, and these people were producing absolutely unserious content. But the core thing is to be strategically unserious here.
Yeah, but I think in the US, generally, the public is much more engaged into what's going on in the world, who's getting elected. And also, we cannot really compare US with the European Union, EU as a whole, right? Because in the EU, you have people mostly focused on their member states. I mean, Irune, now you were telling us that during European elections, there was still a lot more attention in Spain to the Spanish election rather than on the candidates on the European level. We don't have that established, two camps, because that's what in the US was happening. And both were participating on both ends. The influencers were supporting both candidates. They were speaking up for them.
No, yeah. This is the case. As we call them in Spain, European elections are second order elections, which means that they are we are approaching them through the national lens. No, parties are using European elections to as a way mainly to punish or reward the national government, and this has been happening for many years, um, which means which makes that European elections doesn't get that much attraction, and there's not like really we don't really have like European sort of influencers, no. And I guess this for Brussels is a challenge, because if lobbyists or Euro groups at the European Parliament wants to engage with influencers, I'm not sure with which influencers they should engage with, because here, or at least in some countries, no, I cannot speak for all the countries in the EU, but 100% when we have, for example, been helping some MEPs, what we really do is to try to translate what they are doing at the European level to the national level, so people know that they are doing something. Basically, this is like the main purpose, because really people, to be honest, doesn't care if I don't know, whatever regulation is being discussed at the euro level, like normal people. I don't mean like companies or stuff like that, but like normal people doesn't really know and doesn't really care.
Actually, I have a question. Do you have in Spain something like the not, I don't know, Tanya, maybe you can help me how to define it. It's not like a national, we cannot say it national identity, but these moments when something happens and the entire country, the people come together, and you can see that through their joint response through social media. I'm seeing that in Ukraine so much. I saw that happening in Turkey actually when the Istanbul mayor was arrested. So all Turkish people who were obviously standing against that arrest, they were only posting for several months only about the arrest, the protests. They were boycotting the government. They were boycotting the shops of the government, all of the properties, all of the businesses that the government had. But what I really love about Ukrainian society is that whenever there is something happens, my entire social media feed blows up with memes, with references, with stances, with comments. Now, just 2 days ago, Ukrainians did this huge operation in Russia, destroying Russian air bases. The amount of it's more pop culture moments, but the amount of content that was literally generated within minutes and hours of that attack was phenomenal. And this is how also the popularity of the political figures is rising through that pop content. Now I think that since Trump's election, the landscape popularity raised so much in Ukraine. Of our generals, we know them, we know all of them by name. And this big part of it, especially for young people, I think it's thanks to the power of social media.
Spain is a highly politicized society. However, in terms of what you were explaining, we could label it transversal sort of awakening. I don't see that much. Of course, there are a lot of topics that generates debate, but then of course you find both sides, no, confrontating. The only thing that has generated something kind of transversal into the same kind of direction has been terrorism in Spain. Oh, because we have local experience with that, like national wise, and after that, I guess the jihadist experience also has touched a lot, but mainly, or I have the feeling because of this past. But I don't really see that when I don't know. Of course, I cannot compare anything to what is happening in Ukraine or to what is happening in Turkey. But
Maybe
even
floods. Maybe when floods happened in Valencia.
yeah, that's for sure. When so Spain is a country, a really solidar country, and we experienced that both in the pandemic and what with Valencian floats. But in terms of a more political thing, that is not a catastrophe. No, not even when we have had problems with neighbors. Let's say Morocco, for example. This hasn't generated, a transversal response and kind of social awakening or something like that. Not even it. We just do that. Well, of course, for football, uh, and for solidar stuff. No. So
Yeah.
yeah, which is also really. I mean, is also really nice. No.
Yeah, I feel like
For sure.
football takes such a big role in, European life that probably policymakers should consider how they can do their campaigning there. Because what
It's
I've
true.
seen during the Champions League final, and especially, just the amount of blubber and the energy that was happening in Milan and in Paris, I think it's that's one place where politicians should put
It's true.
attention.
It's true. It's true.
Also, you know what I thought about as you were speaking? I thought that maybe the social response that we see on social media platforms really depends on the issue that is happening. So in Ukraine, maybe it can be determined by the level of atrocities caused by the war. Because before that, yeah, of course, I saw that people were aware, and generally, I think that there is a certain kind of narrative that is always being told to people. So Ukrainians are kind of trained that if something happens, you put it on social media, and people just do it already by default. But at the same time, if it's not such a big problem, maybe people have a lower level of interest or a lower level of interest, because there should be something that is uniting all plasts of population, all plasts of audiences. Then we can see this synchronicity on the
I think
point.
that Ukrainians have very high level of social consciousness because the country has been, everybody's politically informed in Ukraine, very, very much, and everybody cares because the country has been going through so many transformations and shocks, and the one revolution, 2004, then the crisis and the gas crisis, 2008, then revolution of dignity, 2013, then Crimea, then the war. Of course, before that, Zelensky was elected. People are constantly on the edge for something to happen. That is sad. But I think that in Ukraine, unless it's very, very deeply hurtful situation, like the atrocities, the attacks, people dying, everything else people approach with black humor. That's like
That's a coping mechanism, I guess.
yeah. So, but generally, it's like sort of coming back, Tanya, to how you were saying about the US. I see quite similar level of public participation in political life in the US. So compared to how it's happening in Ukraine, in Europe, in extra EU countries, I don't see that much happening in EU countries. I do see that happening in the US, especially ever since Trump was elected, and all of his changes that he's been bringing in. People have been very, very vocal. I think it's great. I think it's great, and more people should be raising their voices despite anything. But yeah, sadly, I don't see it on the same level in Europe at all.
I guess this has a lot to do with what we were speaking, that there's not really a European political conscious, let's say, because there's not such a political really entity besides the political institutions, of course. So I always say the same to those that I work with. Of course, I'm speaking for Spain again. We Spaniards, we really try to be Europeans, or at least our politicians try to be European. I think we're not. 100% we are not culturally European in a way we are, but we are much more like for sure, of course, southern European countries, but we are much more connected to Latin America, and even Spaniards mobilized more for things that are happening in the other side of the Atlantic Sea, that not EU stuff, so that's how we can really see that how important is to feel part of something with really deep cultural roots.
Wow.
So for example, in Spain, the Venezuelan situation is like highly followed for almost everybody really knows. What Milei is doing in Argentina is highly followed by Europeans. But I guess if you ask those that more or less can explain you what Milei is doing or what is happening in Venezuela, I'm 95% sure that they don't even know, besides maybe von der Leyen, who are the rest of the members of the executive branch of the EU. So, or they don't even know the topics that are being discussed.
Yeah, that's a lot to think about, for the institutions and the way how they communicate. I mean, of course, you cannot expect Brussels to communicate to every member states, right? It's the job of the member states, but it's quite alarming in a way, but also fascinating to know about that cultural and political connection.
But this is indeed a very good point, and maybe while it is alarming in a way, there is also the opportunity, because there are also member state executives, and then uh, they are also working on their communications on their level, and then it is in their power and in their hands to make people around them more aware, and for specialists who are working on their communication departments and press offices, this is something also to take into account.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we talked about podcasts, we talked about cultural aspect, and now taking into account that it's been an hour, I would suggest to open the Q&A session for those who are still with us. Any questions, gentlemen?
We have a yes.
But yes, what?
And you can unmute yourself.
Yes, a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. First of all, Tanya, Yulia, congratulations on starting this series. It's probably going to be super amazing, and it's so lovely to hear from you. And congratulations on everything you're doing. It's very nice to hear everything and to kind of catch up, secondhand catch up with you as well through this podcast. So I'm gonna be very brief. I want to kind of comment on a couple of things that you mentioned, and maybe ask a question at the end. It's very interesting to me how we're talking a lot about changes in how politicians are using social media and how that kind of communication is becoming more accepted, I would say. Because I think you'll remember a couple of years ago, former Prime Minister of Finland, Sanna Marin, caused a quote unquote scandal by posting like some videos and photos from a club dancing with her friends, and she was 30 something years old. And look, I'm 30 something years old, and it's pretty natural to just share something that you're doing on Friday, Saturday evening with your buddies. It's completely fine. And I'm glad that we're accepting that as normal, because at the end of the day, politicians are also humans as any one of us with their flaws and virtues and everything else. So it's very interesting for me to see that. And also I want to add one more point on what we were discussing about the volume and the attention in social media. It's also interesting how the speed plays a big role, because now it's getting easier and easier to produce content for social media. You don't really need to have a lot of technical equipment. You don't need to have a lot of sort of technical creative knowledge about video editing or producing or anything like that. You can use the templates, you can use the pre-made things and kind of get your message across and put it out there. But coming from marketing, what I usually love to say to trainings that I'm doing and clients that I'm working with, it's always important to remember the basics. And even though we're living in a world where these trends are taking a lot more attention, they're still based on some essentials, on some basic elements that are prevalent in my industry, for example, for many years. So basically, kind of a question for you, in terms of your work, in terms of political communication, what are some of the basic stuff that you need to remember when you're communicating, when you're working on a campaign, working on a project? Not just in terms of steps and tools, because again, research is a research, survey is a survey, or whether you use a type form or pen and paper, your tool is kind of relevant, survey is still a survey. What are some of the basics that you would like to remind people to kind of pay attention to when they're developing their communications, and also when they're following people, and when they're kind of engaging on social media with political messages?
I will go first. Are you okay with that?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I would say something that is, it may sound a bit silly, but it's very important to know who your target is. And I'm not telling this like this general marketing tip. No, sometimes I have experienced this myself. No, we, for example, we help a lot of think tanks trying to make their audiovisual content get higher audiences. No, through viralization, through reels and stuff like that, using social media. Okay, so we don't just cut the video and publish it on your social media. We tell you which cuts you need to do, and if you normally what happens is that the person in charge of the think tank, or the person that is your contact, no, the one that the client has put there to be the person in touch with you, sometimes it's not really open, because since they have created the product, no, let's say, if imagine it's a conference or an interview or just a podcast, whatever, they think they know, or they really think that message is the one that they wanna to promote. But sometimes that they don't know is that their audience is not going to receive well that message, or that their audience is more focused on that other topic, and then it's better to put this cut first instead of that other one. And this is really important, because it's not just, as you said, it's not just about technical stuff. It's also about the sector that and the experience that you have with this type of content. There's like non non-touchable know-how that you have, that it's really difficult to substitute, and I think it's really valuable at the same time. And I think this is what we need to sell, in a way, is that I know your target, and I know what your target wants. This is why, for example, I don't think that um marketing specialists, or social media specialists, or viralization specialists, or call it however you want, wants to can work with everybody, because they don't know because right now the focus is not on the technical stuff, on how to cut, how to publish, or how to put subtitles. This is not the value you can offer, but the knowledge that you have in a specific audience, or a specific sector. So this is at least what I think.
Yeah, that is so true. I would, so first of all, Darren, I would address the Sana Martin comment. I'm sorry, but her friends should have known better. She's a young politician. She had a lot to learn, and maybe she should have chose her friends better. But going, every human is a human. But people who are posting this, knowing the high pressure of the position she had, maybe that's not good friends. Like, we can just start there. But on the other hand, yeah, if you're like, I'm looking at politicians that are taking over social media now, they're not posting this kind of things. There is very little of the personal life out there. It's becoming very professional, and it's becoming very intentional as well. So I feel like you have to approach your work. Like in our case, we are very intentional. For our clients, we don't go to any media. We go to the media that the target audience will read, or will be seen there, or what looks reputational, and will enhance the position and the perception of our client in their community with their audiences. So we're going very intentional also in terms of who they should not talk to, because that might we can find a way how to maybe talk behind the scenes, but if you have to be very intentional up to that detail. So this is what we have in our work, is to basically have a why behind your strategy. What about you, Tanya?
So there are a few things that I would like to add here. The first thing is being strategic in what you are posting and how you appear on media and social media. Usually it should be included in the strategy from the very beginning. However, when you are drafting the strategy, you need to understand whether you would like to appear on media and on public perception strictly as a professional, and what is your target audience that you are aiming for, or you would leave some part of the content, again strategically, that will reveal your interest. Or for example, if you are a conservative politician and with some traditional values, is that okay for you to post something from your family gathering, or congratulate your voters posting the picture with your family near the Christmas tree? Because this is also intentional, but this also kind of reveals our personal life. But again, you can manage that. Another thing that I wanted to answer, because Darian, you were asking what would be the tips on social media and strategy. For me, it is one message at the time. You do not want to saturate it. One video, one public appearance is always one message. You do not want to speak about climate and then you want to talk about social issues, and then you are talking about the issues that neighboring countries are facing, because then you appear as expert of everything and nothing at the same time. And also the attention span of people is very short, as we were discussing before, so they will simply not be able to remember what you were talking about. It does not mean that you cannot have several messages that you are working on or several issues that you are working on, but just when you are doing one appearance, you are speaking about one issue, because then your message will be received in the more efficient way.
Maybe I will read out the comment that we have in the chat from my dear colleague. So first, a comment on the last point from Tanya. I think the EU comms officers are actually talking to their audience. The problem is that their audience is the EU bubble. And here comes my question. For the three of us, is there a political ideology that is winning thanks to social media, or the rise of social media is killing the ideology and moving it just to a slogan? This question is for you girls, because we actually discussed this with Luca before the call.
Tetiana, do you want to start?
I mean, I can start. So when I'm thinking about social media, I do not think that it kills it, but it's not like quite killing, it's more flattening, I would say, because social media platforms, they really reward the engagement, but sometimes they have the lack of nuance. So quite often what we can see is that the ideas that are being promoted on social media, they get stripped down into some slogans. And then it creates the kind of performative politics. So you are saying the right thing, and then you are saying it loudly, but it will matter much more, as we were discussing before, than understanding the complex issues that will be standing behind it. So for me, it's kind of been replaced these days with a certain alignment, like aesthetic alignment kind of thing. And also what I think matters for politics and communication, which is connected to the rise of social media, is that candidates themselves, they become the brands. And ideology also becomes a certain kind of, I don't like the word vibe here, but a vibe, not a real policy platform. And we can see it as a complementary thing in a way, because then you can rule, you can master the art of narrative much better. Basically, who you are, what you survived, what you are fighting for. And from that perspective, I see also lots of opportunity here. And also one more thing that I would like to add on here is that, of course, real change needs frameworks. and it should not be limited only on catchphrases in 30 seconds video on TikTok. But even to get the attention, you firstly need to enter the feed that you are targeting with some kind of the hook. And only after you manage to get there with a certain kind of hook, you need to reveal the essentials that you are working on. And I don't think that it is about dumbing down, but it is about how you can turn people's curiosity and turn it on firstly. And then from this curiosity, you are jumping into conviction part.
What I would say is, of course, it looks like there's not an ideology that is winning the social network cultural battle, which is a specific battle inside the cultural battle. But I don't think, or I'm not sure, this will be more accurate, that they are winning it as an ideology. They are certain, they are winning it because they are a certain profile of politicians, of new politicians. For sure, because mainly young people in not only in Europe, in this case, but in we would say that the Western world are more conservative than before, and they are being more appealed by the ideas of the alternative right. Um, and also all these new politicians that are really winning this social media cultural battle are really outsiders, um, that of course it's easy for them because they don't have a political background, they don't have political parties. Political parties in those countries where where political culture and where political dynamics are too tied to again political parties, where independent candidates is not a thing, um are a pain in the ass because they constantly want you to do things on their way because they want to control, the candidates, which it makes sense, no? And for sure in this cultural battle in social media, my feeling is that slogan is kind of winning over, let's say, ideological consistency. But it's true that at the same time, the one of the things that they have in favor this type of new politicians is that they are less ideological consistent. So in the end, is I'm not sure what's the what's causing what's the consequence of what. No, it's sort of a circle, the one that I'm drawing here. But this is what I can say.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes in life it's just like you don't know where it started and you don't know where it's going, but it's going somehow somewhere already. Yeah. Girls, thank you so much for this amazing conversation.
Yeah, thank
No,
you. It was a pleasure.
it was really really nice. I really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Learned so much about the society of Spain and the environment from the political perspective. We haven't done campaigns in Spain, but it's something that our clients have in mind. So definitely very good and helpful thing to know. Also, I've been drawing parallels for me how Italy and Spain are kind of connected, not connected. So thank you so much, Irune.
Thank you, girls.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for those that have attended the meeting.
Have a nice evening.
Yes. And thank you, Tanya, actually, for bringing us all together.
Yeah,
Yes, for
you're the reason why we're here.
Yes, thank you, Tanya. You're an amazing host of the discussions. I'm here just as a passenger on the ride.
I think we need to thank both you, Irune, and you, Yulia, and of course, we also need our audience who joined us today. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your questions, and I hope to see you all in what it will be, July.
Yes. Bye, guys. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.